During his State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphsa said that the COVID-19 social relief for distress grant would be extended for another year while consultations for a long-term solution are underway. In January, the civil society collective met with President Ramaphosa and ministers Lindiwe Zulu and Enoch Godongwane. The Institute for Economic Justice, Black Sash Studies and Poverty and the Inequality Institute, #Pay the Grants, as well as Amandla.mobi, wanted to discuss a proposal to extend the 350 social relief of distress grant beyond March 2022 and look at the possible introduction of a basic income grant. Now, for more on this, we are joined by senior researcher at the Institute for Economic Justice, Kelly Housen. Kelly, thank you so much for your time. A very good morning to you. This grant, good news that has been extended, but of course we need a basic income grant. Can we afford it or can't we though?
Certainly. So just to address the first issue of the extension of the SID grant, we really welcome this extension, and civil society partners, including the IEJ, has engaged with government and with the President to advocate for the extension of the grant. But as you say, we've also strongly advocated for pathways towards a universal basic income. Of the scale of the unemployment crisis and the crisis of poverty that we face that has only worsened during the pandemic. And so we've strongly advocated to government that the SID grant be over time transitioned into a universal basic income grant reaching the upper bound poverty line of $1,335 per month. The question of whether we can afford it has been very contended, and there are certain loud voices on both sides of that question. The IEJ and others have put forward rigorous proposals for financing options to show that it is possible to implement a universal basic income guarantee in South Africa in a sustainable way that doesn't involve a huge amount of fiscal risk. What we have said is that this needs to be financed through progressive taxation options. There are areas of our economy that are untapped or under-tapped in terms of taxation. What we really don't want to see is the UBI being financed through taxation which hits the poorest households hardest. So, for instance, increases to VAT or increases to income tax on the lower and middle income earners. There are definitely options for instituting a wealth tax, for instance, or a social security tax. These measures would take a small proportion of tax from the very highest income earners and redistribute it to the majority or the large portion of South Africans who are without income. And so we've put forward a number of proposals for this, and we really do assert that it is possible within the fiscal situation that South Africa is in at the moment.
I mean, what the President has done now is buy himself some time to find a way to make this basic income grant a long-lasting and a permanent solution. But with it costing 35 billion rand for the 350, it will be quite heavy, the cost on the economy if it does reach at least the upper poverty band. What are those costs looking like at the moment?
So we've estimated that the gross cost of UBI at the upper bound poverty line would be about 530 billion. But there are a lot of important caveats to that. That's the gross cost, but the net cost is likely to be much lower. A lot of that money will flow back into government revenue through things like increased spending and VAT, as well as a clawback on the highest earners. We also know from past experience of similar policies that there's not a universal uptake. So the uptake is likely to be between 60 and 80%. And finally, the point that I'd really like to stress is that it's not only a cost. It's not only a drain on the economy. A proposal like this has great potential to be an economic stimulus. So like I say, the lowest earning households spend the highest proportion of their income in local businesses. So that money is likely to flow back into local businesses to stimulate local economies. And it also, as the President referred to in his SONA, is likely to be used micro enterprises, investing in small businesses and growing the economy that way. Finally, there's a huge, some people have presented the grants and job creation as a trade-off, and we really strongly push back against that. We don't think that they are a trade-off. Increased social protection, increased social security has a complementary effect on job creation. It enables people to meet their basic needs so that they can go out and participate in the economy.
Absolutely. With a third of South Africa's population in some sort of grant, what could some of the permanent solutions look like? Does it all have to be financial in terms of money being sent out? Could there be partnering with a big business for coupons like there is a system in America? Something along those lines?
So we've advocated for a universal basic income grant for a number of reasons. There's a huge administrative cost associated with targeted and means-tested grants. They often end up excluding people who should be eligible to receive those grants. And so universal income gets around all of those administrative issues which are costly to the government as well. We think that it is the most inclusive solution, and we think that it is the solution that is the most in line with the President's language around the need for a social compact, the need for a new consensus, everybody contributing what they can to meet the needs of all South Africans. But I do agree that it must be complemented by other measures, and those other measures, as we see them, are job creation, and of course, that can come from private sector-led growth, but also from public job creation, and the President discussed both of those in his speech. And also infrastructure and public services, the government providing the basic services to meet the needs of all South Africans. And those three things, grants, job creation, and public services, must form the three pillars of sustainable development in South Africa.
In closing, with the research that the civil servant organizations have presented to the President, does it look promising that there will be a permanent basic income grant instituted? How long do you think it would take as well?
We were hoping for a little bit more certainty out of the SONA. We're hopeful that we will have more concrete proposals coming through in the upcoming budget speech. The President mentioned that the government is considering options for minimum income support. So we would like to know more about what options are being considered, and we would like, of course, to be included in that process of evidence gathering. We've proposed to government that there should be a rapid and focused, high-level review of the evidence. So that could take the form of a commission of inquiry or an expert panel appointed by the President. But we're very clear on the fact that that should not take longer than 6 months. So we would hope that there would be concrete proposals within 3 to 6 months that would then be taken up and acted on by the government. The INJ has pathways to transitioning the SRD grant to universal basic income. It's raising the level of the SRD grant to the food poverty line, which is 624 Rand in South Africa, and then transitioning that to a universal basic income by 2024 at the latest.
Senior researcher at the Institute for Economic Justice, Kelly Horson, thank you so much for your time this morning.